What if I told you that this is one of the most record-breakingly popular games that has ever been made, and the most popular game in the history of Roblox? At first glance, it looks a little boring, right? I mean, it's almost the digital equivalent of watching paint dry. But everywhere I go, I see the same word being used to describe this experience: addictive. You see, this game, Grow a Garden, has within 5 months of launching reached a peak concurrent player count of nearly 22 million. That surpasses the peak player count of the top 10 games on Steam combined. That surpasses all of the records Fortnite ever set. But outside of the Roblox world, you might not even have heard of it. So where did it come from? Well, it all started with a 16-year-old kid. Yes, seriously. In his words, the original game was developed in like 3 days, with the game first launching in March 2025. By April, it was popular enough that he gave 50% of the game away to professional developers. From there, the game launched into the stratosphere, and Grow a Garden has evolved into an ultra retention optimized, money-getting, addictive experience. But how? Well, at the very heart of Grow a Garden's success are 9 key design decisions that I want to share with you that make this game uniquely effective at both reeling you in and keeping you in. The first of these design choices? Uncertainty. We've known about the power of uncertainty in games for a very long time. In 1958, French sociologist Roger Caillois said that if there is no uncertainty, then play simply stops. So how does Grow a Garden introduce uncertainty? Well, to understand that, you first have to understand how Grow a Garden works. And that is simple. Buy seeds, plant them in your garden, wait, nope, a little longer, perfect. Now harvest, then sell. Then use that money to buy more valuable seeds, and repeat. That's your gameplay loop. So where does the uncertainty come in? Well, welcome to the seed shop. We have fun and games. Here you can buy the stuff that you'll actually grow in your garden, listed by rarity, with each seed only having a limited per player's stock. Not to worry though, if stocks run out, you only ever have to wait 5 minutes for that stock to be refreshed. So you might say then that isn't uncertain, in fact it's the complete opposite. Well, here's the thing, that restock, it only applies to the more common seeds. For the rarer, more valuable stuff, every 5 minutes is merely a chance for a restock. So for example, let's say you want this burning bud, one of the most valuable seeds in the game. For every 5-minute restock, there's actually only a 0.3% chance that a burning bud will be available to buy. But the developers do give you the option to cut all that waiting around for a small amount of real-world cash. This burning bud, for instance, can be obtained instantly for 915 Robux, so about $10 for one virtual seed. But of course, you're not going to spend that straight away. That's a lot of money, particularly if you're a kid. So Grow a Garden pulls a mobile gaming classic, what we call the foot in the door technique. It's essentially an answer to the following question: how do you get someone to make a big commitment? Like, I don't know, spending over $100 on a virtual dinosaur pet? Well, these dudes figured it out in the 60s. To get someone to make a big commitment, get them to make a much smaller commitment first. So how does Grow a Garden do this? Well, in every Grow a Garden server, you'll be in the game with 5 other players and their gardens, and you are given the option to steal anything from another player's garden for 37 Robux, or about 13 cents, and then sell it off for its full value. That means that you can walk right into a high-level player's garden, steal an extremely valuable fruit, sell it off, and then become a super wealthy player within 5 minutes of joining the game for 13 cents. That's absolutely insane. There is just one small wrinkle with this system though. According to the game's official wiki, quote, occasionally the steal will fail and the game will take the player's Robux and the player will receive 100 in-game currency in return. The player isn't told this. This is a real money purchase with undisclosed odds of failure, and that actively breaks Roblox terms of service. So I do implore the developers to patch this out ASAP. With that said though, the overall monetization practices of Grow a Garden are actually quite unusual for such a popular title. There's little in the way of game passes, and there are no subscriptions to speak of. For a lot of Roblox players, this likely increases the game's appeal because players are less likely to feel ripped off or angry at the game. Though I would say that this is a calculated decision on the part of the developers, rather than an act of benevolence. With that said, the game's design means that you can get surprisingly far without spending. I found that the community in this game is so generous that they will often give you stuff for free and not ask for anything in return. For example, I became a billionaire within the first 10 minutes of playing this game purely from another player's generosity. This, combined with the stealing mechanic, makes this game kind of unique in that you can basically skip much of the early game and get quickly to the actual meat, which is the gacha system of the seed restocks. And these restocks are a game-wide thing, by the way. They happen for every player in every server at the same time. And that means that tracking each restock is a big thing. There are live streams and Discord servers with thousands of participants participants dedicated to this very thing, tracking when rare seeds come in stock so that people know when to get into game and buy. In gaming lingo, we call this an appointment mechanic, or in other words, a way for the game to tell the player, hey, come back and play again later. Typical mobile games do this with things like daily quests or login bonuses, and whilst Grow a Garden does have the former, it's actually pretty hidden, with the game instead preferring to take a more idle game type approach, similar to Egg Inc. or Adventure Capitalist. Whatever the approach though, we would nonetheless describe these mechanics as hooks, tricks the game uses to keep you coming back and turn it into a habit, and eventually a hobby. Oh, would you look at that? Hook, habit, hobby. This is what we call the hook model, created by Nir Eyal in 2013 as part of a whole book that's all about making your products as addictive as possible. Not fun, by the way, addictive. And ultimately, that's the core of Grow a Garden. It's a habit game that keeps you engaged in a forever loop. But how exactly does the game create this loop? Well, it does it in a number of ways, actually, and the first is quite simple. To maintain massive numbers like Grow a Garden, you need to make leaving feel like a mistake. You need to create a fear of missing out. FOMO. Remember that 22 million concurrent players stat I mentioned earlier? Well, here's the graph of that. See those massive player spikes? They aren't random. In fact, they all occur right as the game updates. But why? Well, because Grow a Garden turns these updates into unmissable one-time events. I actually joined one of these update events, and honestly, it surpassed my expectations. For whatever reason, Travis Kelce was there. That's Taylor Swift's boyfriend for non-Americans. And he got interviewed by the developer Jandal, whilst the whole map turned into a football stadium and a bunch of wacky animations happened. Rare seeds got restocked, there were thunderstorms and discos and black holes, and before you know it, the update happened, and it was completely seamless. No server shutdowns or anything. Oh, and as a bonus, just for being there, I got this exclusive football-shaped pet that was only given to people who were in the game at that moment. Pets are another appointment mechanic in this game, by the way. They come in eggs that you place in your garden, and then they only hatch after a certain amount of time has passed. You can pay to skip this wait, but if you don't, it gives you another reason to come back to the game later. In the case of the football pet, there was no egg. It was more of a participation trophy. A badge of honor to tell other players, I was there when that thing happened, and to let other players know how much of a square they are if they missed out and didn't get the reward. But the fear of missing out in this game goes even deeper than just the update events. One of the main things you don't want to miss in Grow a Garden? The weather. Yes, that's right. Just like a real-life farmer boy, the weather plays a huge role in the value of your crops through a mechanic called crop mutation. Remember those discos and thunderstorms and black holes I just mentioned? Well, those are actually events that can cause your plants to mutate, transforming them visually and multiplying their sale value. But there is a catch, and it's a big one. These mutations can only happen while you're online and in the game. How's that for intelligent design? A system perfectly designed to maximize your game time and punish you for being away. Every minute logged off is a minute lost. An opportunity cost. Like, you can miss a random bolt of lightning that shocks your beanstalk and multiplies its value by 100 times. This mechanic helps to create a constant low-grade anxiety in players who care about maximizing their profits. A nagging feeling that the ideal weather event could be happening right now and that you genuinely lose out by not being there for it. But let's say that you don't have the ability to leave a game constantly running 24/7 in the hopes that you get these mutations. Well, actually, that's okay, because the true masterstroke of Grow a Garden, the mechanic that ensures that the game never ever leaves your mind, is something that happens when you're not even playing. Your garden grows when you're offline. On the surface, this sounds convenient, a nice little feature, but psychologically, man, is it clever. Because no matter how busy your life is, work, school, sleep, your investment is constantly maturing. The game is doing work for you. Remember the hook model from earlier? Well, this is the final part of it, investment. When you plant your seeds and grow a garden, you invest a bit of your time and possibly some Robux. The game then takes that investment and grows it for you, which creates a psychological debt. Now you have to come back to see how much your garden has grown and to harvest your rewards. Not returning feels like wasting the progress the game made for you. It's a fantastic hook because when you're away from the game, you think, I wonder how my garden's doing, and that prompts you to jump back in. The developers know this, of course, and so once you do check on your garden, this is what happens. Literally a before and after sequence of what your garden looked like when you last quit the game and what it looks like now. A proper 60-minute makeover moment to show you this stunning transformation and all the hard work the game did for you. You know, in many ways, Grow a Garden is the perfectly engineered, habit-forming product. Every single mechanic is designed not necessarily for your enjoyment, but for your retention. With that said though, people do seem to actually enjoy the game. Let me give you 5 reasons why, and for each one, I'll also say why these good points are beneficial for the developers. Number 1, I've heard the game being described as relaxing by a lot of people, and that's certainly true. The only real point of tension in the game is someone stealing your fruits, easily remedied by creating a free private server. From a developer perspective, it's the perfect low-stress environment for maximal session length and minimal player frustration. Number 2, the game also has some genuinely interesting interesting options for self-expression in the plants you grow and how you build your base, with the time you spend doing all of this customization constantly adding to your investment in the game, which makes you stick around with the game for longer. Number 3. Grow a Garden does a good job of encouraging social interaction. The fact that many plants can regrow after being harvested encourages sharing resources with newbies, and the design of the game with its various wacky plants and mutations gives people the chance to flex and show off to others, something that 8-year-old Eric notes in this BBC interview. He claims to have competitions with his friends over who has the best garden and the most money, which is honestly quite cool. It's also interesting from a developer's perspective because players of video games are usually categorized in 4 different ways: killers, socializers, achievers, and explorers. And the gardens of Grow a Garden seem to appeal simultaneously to at least 2 of those player types, achievers and socializers, which collectively is said to make up 90+% of all gamers, a massively broad audience. Number 4, the game has a friend bonus system. For every friend you have in game with you, the value of your fruit goes up by 10%, with a full server of friends giving you a 50% bonus. This encourages you to play with others and pull new people into the experience, helping to grow the game's community organically. Number 5, this is perhaps the most important thing of all about Grow a Garden's success. The game is incredibly, extremely simple and intuitive, and it has a universal appeal by being grounded in the wholesome, relaxing aesthetic of gardening. So those are some of the positive qualities about Grow a Garden, but overall we have to ask ourselves this: does it really deserve to be the most popular game in the history of Roblox? Well, if you were to look at video games as pieces of art, then probably not. But this game isn't trying to be a piece of art, it's trying to be a maximally optimized habit-forming product. And in that sense, it is incredibly well designed, and it's totally understandable why this game is as popular as it is. It took the digital equivalent of watching paint dry and turned it into a cultural phenomenon through clever design. Its success proves that you don't need a game to be that fun, or to require that much skill to play, or to have AAA graphics. All you need to do is dominate the attention economy. And in that sense, Grow a Garden, it's the perfect product.